Yes, identify the below mentioned biome. The fifth question. It's spread across North America, Ukraine, etc., characterized by low rainfall and dominated by a large herbivores and diverse array of ground nesting birds. So you have to identify the described biome from this particular statement. The options are savanna, temperate grassland, desert, and temperate deciduous forest. See, the statement says it is spreading across North America. From that particular statement itself, you will come to know the answer. Okay, see, it is saying it is spreading across North America, Ukraine, etc., characterized by low rainfall. Low rainfall, characterized by low rainfall as well as dominated by large herbivores. Large herbivores are there. Herbivorous animals, large herbivorous animals are also present. Okay. And ground nesting birds. Ground nesting birds. Okay, ground nesting birds. Ground nesting birds. So, all these actually are characteristic features of which biome? Is it forest? Is it grassland? Is it desert? Or is it tundra? That is, it is having low rainfall. So, it can be either the desert or the grassland. Large herbivores are present where the herbivorous animals are present where? Mainly in the region where herbs are there, right? So, in the grasslands we know that it is being predominated by tall grasses which are herbs, right? So, mainly this particular statement is actually talking about, yes, the grassland biome, okay, or the grassland ecosystem as a whole. It is talking about the grassland. So, next we need to know which type of grassland. We know depending upon the latitude we have classified it into tropical as well as temperate, that is the savanna as well as the temperate grasslands, right. So, here it is telling it is found in North America as well as parts of Ukraine. So, mainly where it will be seen, see it is yes, it is talking about the temperate grasslands. Okay, it is talking about the temperate grasslands. And more specifically, we know North America, it is like yes, the prairies. Okay, prairies, the temperate grasslands that are present in the North American regions, we call it as prairies. So, basically this particular statement, it is talking about the grasslands and more specifically it is the temperate grasslands. Okay, so here from this statement, from the conclusions that you obtain from this statement, you can eliminate desert as well as you can eliminate temperate deciduous forest, and you will come to savanna and temperate grassland. Since here it is saying it is spreading across North America and Ukraine, you can actually eliminate savanna as well, which is tropical. Okay, tropical grassland. So, here it is temperate grasslands, which is, that is B is your right answer. Okay, so temperate grasslands also, are also like depending upon the region where these temperate grasslands are found, they are being named differently. Like in the Eurasian parts we have the temperate grasslands which is known as steppes. North America we have prairies. Then the South American region it is known as pampas. Then in the South African region it is known as velds. Okay, so depending upon the region where temperate grasslands are found, they are named differently. So, keep that point also in mind. So, here your answer is option B, temperate grasslands. Next question with regard to food chain. Question number 6. Food chain always starts with a primary producer and ends with top carnivores. Second statement, dugong represents primary consumers in a marine food chain. So, you have to pick out the correct statements from this. So, the first statement says food chain always starts with a primary producer and ends with top carnivores. Is it so? When we studied about food chains in our basic classes of ecosystem, we have seen that food chains can be divided into two categories, right? We have, yes, we have grazing food chain. We have grazing food chain as well as we have the detritus food chain. Grazing food chain as well as the detritus food chain. What is the basic difference between grazing food chain and detritus food chain? See, in grazing food chain, it is the first trophic level is constituted by the producers or the autotrophs, right? That is the case of grazing food chain. The first trophic level is being constituted by the producers. Whereas in detritus food chain, what happens? The food chain is starting with dead and decaying matter, right? That is, the energy is derived in the food chain. The first source of energy is actually from dead and decaying matter in case of detritus food chain, whereas it is from the primary producers in the case of grazing food chain. That is the basic difference between the two, right? So the first statement here says food chain always starts with a primary producer. Is it so? No, we have detritus food chain where it is starting with dead and decaying matter. So the first statement here, it is wrong. Second statement says dugong represents primary consumers in a marine food chain. You know dugong? Yes, dugong, they are actually, they occupy, when we talk about the marine food chain, the dugongs, these animals, they are mammals, right? They are mammals and they occupy the second level in the food chain. That is, they are feeding upon the seagrass. Okay, they are feeding upon the seagrass, and hence they are belonging to the second trophic level, which means they are the primary consumers. Why? Because they depend directly upon the producers for their food. So they are consumers in the first level. That is why they are known as primary consumers. So they are belonging to the second trophic level in a marine food chain, and they are examples of primary consumers in a marine food chain, which means the second statement here, it is right. Okay, with regard to dugong, it is right, and your answer here will be option B. Okay. Yes, next question with regard to nutrient cycles. Last year also question was there from nutrient cycling. Yes, consider the following statements with respect to nutrient cycles. There exists inexhaustible form of nitrogen in atmosphere which can be readily utilized by green plants. Second statement, sulfur cycle is one of the most important gaseous cycle which is regulated by weathered rocks and decomposition of organic matter. Third statement says carbon cycle is a continuous exchange of carbon between atmosphere and organisms, which is usually a long-term cycle. Hydrological cycle is circulation of water in its atmosphere and is driven by solar energy. So you have to pick out the correct statements. Okay. So see, the first statement says there exists inexhaustible form of nitrogen in atmosphere which can be readily utilized by green plants. See, when we studied biogeochemical cycles, when we studied about in specific context of nitrogen cycle, we have seen that nitrogen cannot be used up by the plants readily. Okay, it cannot be used by the plants readily from the atmosphere. It has to be, first it has to be fixed, nitrogen has to be fixed. Then this particular nitrogen, it has to be converted into forms that which can be readily utilized by the plants. That is through nitrification. Okay, through nitrification, where the nitrification process has to occur where the ammonia is first converted to nitrites, and nitrites is further converted to nitrates. So these two steps is being constituted by two different types of organisms, and these two steps together forms the nitrification process. Okay, first converting to nitrites and then to nitrates, and these nitrates are being taken up by the plants. Okay, so that is the main step which is involved in nitrogen cycle. So readily plants cannot utilize nitrogen from the atmosphere. So which means the first statement, there exists inexhaustible form of nitrogen in atmosphere which can be readily used by green plants. Is it a correct statement? No, it is wrong. Second statement says sulfur cycle is one of the most important gaseous cycle regulated by weathered rocks and decomposition of organic matter. See, Sulfur cycle is one of the most important gaseous cycles. From that statement, from those words itself, you should arrive at the conclusion that that particular statement is wrong. Why? We know nutrient cycles or biogeochemical cycles are classified into two categories based upon their reservoir. Okay, based upon their reservoir. That is, one is gaseous and the other one is sedimentary. Gaseous cycle means where the reservoir or the source is the atmosphere or the hydrosphere, and sedimentary cycle means the reservoir or the source is the sediments, the trapped sediments, or we can say the rocks. Such types of cycles are known as sedimentary cycles, and in the case of sedimentary cycle we have seen that phosphorus, sulfur, those are examples of sedimentary cycles. See, second statement says sulfur cycle is one of the most important gaseous cycle. So it is wrong, it is not a gaseous cycle, it is sedimentary cycle. So second statement is also wrong. See, when one is wrong, you can eliminate option A as well as option C. When the second statement is wrong, you can readily eliminate option B, which means your answer is option D, 4 only. So among the 4 statements, from the first 2 statements itself, you have arrived at the answer. In the exam, the final exam also, you will come across such questions where even by solving 2 or 3 of the statements from the 4 or 5 statement question, you will arrive at the answer. There is not necessary criterion like you should know all the 5 statements. Okay, you can apply the elimination technique and you will arrive at the answer. So here, see, we have arrived, that is option D, 4 only is the answer, which means 3 is automatically wrong. What does 3 says? Carbon cycle is a continuous exchange of carbon between atmosphere and organisms, which is usually a long-term cycle. See, we know carbon is one of the essential constituents of the living tissues, and usually it forms short cycles. Okay, carbon usually forms short cycles and not long cycles. They are not long-term cycles, they are short-term cycles. So that's why we can say third statement, it is also a wrong statement. Okay, it is a wrong statement. So third is also wrong, which means fourth is hydrological cycle or water cycle is circulation of water in Earth's atmosphere and is driven by solar energy. Is basic concept. Yes, that is a right statement. So 4 only, or option D is your answer.